This episode is brought to you by White Cloud Coffee Roasters, where every bean tells a story of adventure and passion. Nestled in the heart of Idaho's mountain wilderness, White Cloud has been mastering the craft of coffee for more than 38 years, bringing the spirit of the outdoors into every cup. Discover the difference in their premium beans, meticulously roasted to capture the essence of the mountains. From robust, full-bodied classics to creative flavored blends, White Cloud coffees are designed for you to appreciate the subtleties of premium coffee. Now, listeners of our podcast can get an exclusive 10% discount. Just use the promo code CREATIVITY at checkout. Visit whitecloudcoffee.com and use the code CREATIVITY for your 10% discount. Start your adventure today. Journey to whitecloudcoffee.com. Tap into your most original thinking. Organize your ideas and create the opportunities to launch your creative work. Unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson.
Welcome back, friends, to our podcast, Your World of Creativity, where we go around the world talking to creatives of all kinds about how they get inspired and how they organize ideas, and most of all, how they get the confidence and the connections to launch their work out into the world. And that's what it's really all about for us. But how many times have you as a creative been asked, what do you do? How do you use it? Where do I buy it? But most importantly, you get asked, how is it different from other options, other choices in the marketplace? And that's what we're going to focus on today, the power of differentiation. And our guest is Barry LaBov. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark. I'm a big fan. I love it. I listen to all these different types of creative people, whether it's in business or whether it's songwriters and musicians, and I love it. I'm proud to be on the show today.
It's great to have you. And the topic of differentiation, you've got a new book just out, The Power of Differentiation, When Hearts, Minds, and Market Share. It's just out from Indigo River Publishing, distributed by Simon & Schuster. This idea of differentiation, Barry, you've been in the business of marketing and branding and differentiating your whole career. But I love, and I'd like to emphasize this, winning hearts. I'm sure, like me, you've been in so many meetings. How do we get more market share? How do we get sales up? But boy, it comes down to heart, doesn't it?
The subtitle, and I'm so glad you said it, is Win Hearts, Minds, and Market Share. And that's actually the order of importance. You've got to win the hearts of the people who are producing your product or servicing your product, representing your product. They've got to feel like, I love this. And then you got to win their minds, because it's, okay, this makes sense. This is brilliant. This is great. After that, it's a lot easier to win market share or sales. It's so often the case that a company will launch a product and the very people who are behind it don't even know the launch happened. And to me, that is the recipe for lost opportunities and sometimes recipe for failure.
And it sounds great. We got to change attitudes. We got to embrace feelings. These things often don't show up on the PowerPoint when we do our market research, do they?
No, and it's interesting because your show's all about how did you get here and how did you write this and how did you do this and what was your process? And really that kind of launches me into it because it's such a great question. I was writing this book 2 years ago, and it was primarily on branding. I have a certain kind of process that is a 5-step process, and it includes 1 or 2 steps nobody else does. So I'm writing this thing and I'm putting it together. And all of a sudden, as I was going down that path, it started to occur to me that it's really not just about let's determine what makes your product, your brand, your process unique or different, distinct. It's also about not just letting your people know about it so that your employees are aware, but it's celebrating it. Because it really is so tough today to retain employees. There's such a morale issue across the world as far as employees. And you think about it, The companies that I work with, small and large, all want their employees to do a good job. If they don't really care, why should they do a good job? They all want to retain their employees. If the employees really aren't part of what's going on and they don't really know why anything's going on, okay, why should they even stay there? So all of a sudden, the book took a left turn, and I went, wait a minute. This has to be just as much about engaging the enterprise as it is identifying what you do that makes you different. And that's what happened. So when you said that, I would say to anybody in the audience, it sounds light and fluffy and touchy-feely. It's really not. It's very much human. It's something that gives people a meaning or a significance in what they do. And I would rather have an army of people who feel that what they're doing for me is meaningful and significant than have a bunch of robots out there that say, I don't care, and I won't be here tomorrow if I can make 10 cents more down the road. So it's really a smart thing on top of, yes, it is a positive emotional thing as well.
I don't know how many times I've ever heard a CEO or a head of HR saying, people are our biggest asset. They make the brand, they are the service. In your book, you talk about celebrating brand differentiation, but I guess that should include celebrating the differentiation of employees and team members too.
Yes, it should. And what you said is interesting. There's a real common business speak of our employees make the difference. And I hear that, but I'll always challenge the CEO or the leader and say, okay, so you have some kind of unique DNA at your company that nobody else has. And they go, no, it's just our employees are great. And I go, we've got to get a little deeper than that because nobody believes that. What you need to do is say our employees are great people and they believe in what we're doing. Now, I'm buying into that. I'm going, okay, I get that. But don't tell me they're a special type of human that walks through that door. And what you're talking about is it's not just informing employees that here is our new launch or here is our new rebrand. It's literally engaging them in the process because you know what? They might just have a few good ideas. So we got to realize that. On top of all that, once they get engaged in it and you celebrate what you're doing, as you said, Mark, and you nailed it, it's not just, hey, we're doing something great. You're lucky to be with us. It's, hey, we're doing something great. And hey, I know you're sweeping the floors over there, but what you're doing is really important because you're keeping our plant clean. Hey, over here, you're doing such and such. Here's the difference you make. And we have to realize that, and I know this is a creative show, but if we want our creativity to really succeed, the people behind it have to be engaged. And that's what's so important.
So true. I loved reading about the kind of span and range of your national and international clients and brands. Okay, does an example or case study bubble up when you're telling this example that says somebody really did believe in the brands?
Here's an example. You talked the span. Today, just as an example, we're working with a 120-year-old rail car company to help them really revitalize. Tomorrow, we're going to hold a full-day jam session with the AAA baseball team, which happens to be 100 years old as well, to revitalize their brand and actually engage their community. At the same time, we're doing that tomorrow. Another team of mine is working with a regional hospital network to talk with all of their employees in a series of 29 different meetings that we're having over a 3-month period of time to engage and then relaunch what they're all about. Now, as all that's going on, we work with other really cool companies like Harley Davidson, Macallan Scotch, Audi, Volkswagen, companies like that, and very small companies as well. I'll give you one example. You asked for an example. Johan Donation took over the reins at Audi about 20 years ago. And Audi of America, they're building the cars that we know of as Audi. They were doing pretty well. But what they did is they did something he didn't like. And that was at the end of each year, they would discount their cars so that they could hit their unit total goal. So they wanted to hit a certain goal. So they're going to go throw $5,000, $10,000, whatever it is at the customer and say, hey, you can save 5 to 10,000 if you buy the car now. And Johan looked at it and he said, we have to stand for the brand. And what we have to do is hold the line on what we charge. If that car was worth $70,000 in July, it should be worth $70,000 in November. His entire sales group was ready to revolt. He stood tall and he explained to them, look at what we're offering. Look at all these things we do. Look at what each of you offer to the dealers and to the customers. You know what? If we don't believe, then why should they believe? Mm. And he did. And it turned them around from being a good success story into being, for the next decade, the #1 fastest growing premium car in their segment.
That's so good. Love those kind of stories. To really embrace your brand and know that it stands up. On your own journey, you've been named Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, not once, but twice. There's got to be embracing your own differentiation, right? And managing your own firm and helping the employees that you work with believe in what you're doing. Tell us about some of those challenges and rewards.
I've started out as a rock and roll musician, so I would play in bands, and the goal when you're in a rock band is you only have 3 or 4 other guys in the band, and each one of them needs to play a certain role, and they're not perfect. So one guy may be a great lead guitarist, but he's not a good rhythm player. One guy may be a great singer, but he's not a great bass player. But you got to deal with it. And instead of looking at the weaknesses, you really try to accentuate the strengths. For better or for worse, Mark, that's how I've run my company for the last 40 some years. And that is, I run it like it's a big rock band. So you never know when you're in a rock band, and this is great for your audience. You never know who's going to come up with the great idea or the great song. You cannot assume it's the guy who writes most of our songs. If you look at some of the great songs out there, like the band Queen, their #2 song was written by their bass player. Another one, Bites the Dust. Okay. He wrote it. It's a bizarre song. Okay. It was not written by Freddie Mercury or the other 2 guys that wrote most of their stuff. So out of the blue, this guy writes this thing. And instead of them rejecting it, because after all, he's the bass player, just shut up and get out of here. No, they go, this is cool. That's how I run my company. Anybody can come up with a great idea and we will run with it. So what I've done is, I've embraced that. I've looked at the strengths of people. Sometimes I see what somebody can be and they go, I know I can do it, Barry. I really don't want to do it. I know I can, but I don't feel like doing it. And I go, okay. And I've had people like that, and they've been with me for 25 years. They didn't want to move into this other area, but they liked what they're doing. But just as often, I have people who go, wow, you think I can do this? And I go, yes, you can do it. And they do it. And they thrive in that role. So what I've done is I've offered people what I think is the chance of a lifetime to do things that maybe they never would have been given elsewhere. And that's one of the secrets to the success that we have had at the company.
Sure. It's fantastic. I love the rock and roll roots. I heard in another interview that you had a chance to play backup to John Mellencamp. And it brought me to this. You're in Indiana. You're in the small town. I'm hearing a Mellencamp song as we speak. What's it like trying to build this kind of reputation, this kind of company, not in one of maybe what you would consider the traditional creative capitals?
Phenomenal question. I used to say when I talk to clients all over the world that, look, I don't want to be judged by my zip code because too often I would be in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and people go, do you have FedEx or UPS there? And I would go, oh my gosh, please. So what I had to do was I had to differentiate myself from day one in my business. And that was, I did not want to be just another local agency. I wanted to go after some of the big companies. I wanted to show that we could stand right up against the top guys in the field, and we did it. And it wasn't easy, but it meant we had to travel to New York, Los Angeles, Nashville, wherever it had to be. And we had to stand tall right up against everyone else. And we had to out-create them. We had to out-care. We had to outthink. And once in a while, we won something pretty big and the client was excited. But that's what we had to do. I did not want to stay, as a lot of companies would be, that really nice, golly shucks, gee willikers agency down the street. Because honestly, Fort Wayne, back in the 1980s when we started, was very susceptible to recession. So if we had a bad economy nationwide, Fort Wayne was shut down. And I thought, I can't run a business like this. I've got to get outside my market. And that's what I've done. And to this day, we work with companies all over the nation. Yes, sometimes all over the world. And I'd say maybe 10% of our business is local. The other 90% is all over the nation. And it helps us. It's enabled us to raise our standards because we're up against the top performers. It also makes me irritating to deal with sometimes internally because I'm going, wait a minute, we got to do better than that. And they go, no, this is good enough. I go, no, we got to do better. And it's because I'm very used to the fact that there are high standards out there and we have to achieve them or exceed them.
Yes, compete at a whole different level. Well, lots of good ingredients for a great book then.
Yeah.
Congratulations on compiling it all. Tell us a little bit of that process and what it's meant as a creative services firm to have that kind of model put into your book.
I love that question. The process of writing it was very fluid in that I do not believe in writer's block. So for me, I do not allow myself to have writer's block. Okay. Now, some in the audience will go, oh, yeah, I don't. So what I do is I don't get caught up in perfection and I force myself to go write on a particular topic, whether it's so many words or whatever. And I write and I go and I push myself until I am mentally exhausted. And then even if I think what I wrote is terrible, which sometimes I do, I go, I hate this. I don't like this. I don't delete it. I don't judge it, even though I'm starting to feel that way. I give it a chance and I look at it the next day. Often I look at it and it's, there's some pretty good stuff in here. Or sometimes I look at it and go, yeah, I don't like this. This is gone. And then I repeat that process. And what I did as I wrote this book was I created an overview of what the main topics I wanted to cover were. And then I gave myself complete freedom to go down whatever circuitous path I wanted to that was in my head, because I trusted if my brain was sending me somewhere, there probably was a good reason. There was probably something that was drawing me down a certain path. I did that. I then compiled it and I wrote the entire book, the first version, in 3 months, about 60,000 words in 3 months. And then over the next 2 years, I have rewritten and refined it so many times that I cannot even go through it anymore because I've seen it so often. I can't find a typo in there, even though there's something lurking in there. But it was that process. The other thing I did, Mark, was I brought people in, just like I did in rock music. I write a song, I'd say to my wife, honey, what do you think of this? I turn to the guys in my band, what did you think of this? And they give me feedback. I did the same thing with the book. As I was writing it, I turned to my wife. I would turn to others I trust. I get feedback. They sometimes spur me on, sometimes give me a course correction. And it was a series of these until I put this together in imperfect fashion, but it was from start to finish a book. And it said what I wanted to say. And then I stepped back and walked away from it for a few months. It's a series of stories, true stories. Sometimes I don't mention who the client is. Sometimes I combine 3 or 4 stories together. But it's all about clients, companies, brands who had their uniqueness discovered, not created. You don't create your brand, you discover it. And then the creativity comes in. You start to do it in unique ways. And then they celebrated it internally so that their entire enterprise was fired up and ready to go to battle.
I loved reading that principle that you discover. What did you discover about yourself while you were writing this book?
I discovered that my main goal in life is to do something that hasn't been done before. That's important to me. That's originality. So my goal with this book is not to sell so many books or units. My goal is to move the hearts and souls of over 1 million people with this book and its message. And you might think that's 1,000,000 books. It's not. There are companies that have 40,000 employees. There are communities of hundreds of thousands of people that we can affect. So I want to do that. So as I looked at it, I thought, what I learned about me is I'm not a perfectionist. I want to do something that hasn't been done before. And I'm very inclusive. I want to bring in other thoughts and other opinions to make this better. And I want to share this with everybody. I don't want this to be all mine. I want it to be our book.
Fantastic. Great mission, great purpose for a book instead of just selling books. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations on it. How do we find the book? Learn more about you and your work.
The book is on sale at Amazon. You can also go to my website, which is barrylabov.com, or my company site, LaBov, LABOV.com. You can connect with me, talk to me. You can ask questions on the book. You can buy the hardcover book on my barrylabov.com. So lots of ways to connect. I love talking with creative folks. I have so many connections. I even have a spot on my website for all the podcast folks that have heard me, and I have some little gifts and giveaways for them.
Great. We'll come by and check it out. Congratulations on the book just released, The Power of Differentiation, Win Hearts, Minds, and Market Share, just out from Indigo River Publishing. It's distributed by Simon & Schuster. Barry, I know we want to, as creatives, I guess we're taught we've got to celebrate the work, take a break, reflect on how good it was. But at the same time, we're always looking around the corner. We're looking over the hill. We've got a little periscope vision. What other trends do you see that you're watching that have to do with differentiation and branding?
I think the big trend we all talk about is AI, and I think that AI can be a great resource. I think the danger of AI is that we as creatives bankrupt ourselves and go along with what AI puts out for us, and we go, okay, it looks good enough. I think we have to force ourselves to maintain our true, genuine voice.
There you go. What a differentiation between artificial intelligence and what you said about genuine voice. I love that.
Very good. I love
Yes.
that.
My guest has been Barry LaBov. He's a two-time Ernst & Young entrepreneur. He's the founder and CEO of his own firm, LaBov Marketing, and he's the author of a just-released book, The Power of Differentiation. Barry, can't thank you enough for being on the show. Great conversation.
Mark, it's a pleasure and an honor. I love your show. Thank you for allowing me to join this time with you. I really had a good time. Thank you.
Thanks for letting us put the pen in the map in Fort Wayne, Indiana. And we'll add that to Copenhagen and Oslo, LA and Seattle, and all points in between. We love talking to creatives everywhere. And as I said at the outset, how we get inspired is one thing, but I think the other thing that Barry has emphasized today is to really find your difference and highlight it and spotlight it and celebrate it. And that's what it's all about, to get our work out into the world like he has his book and the campaigns for clients. Lots to celebrate. So come back again for our next episode. We're going to continue these around the world trips, and we'll continue unlocking your world of creativity. I'm Mark Stinson, and we'll see you next time.
Unlocking your world of creativity with best-selling author and brand innovator, Mark Stinson. This program was produced by BSB Media, creators of IntelliKey Leadership Stories, Unlocking Your World of Creativity, and thepeaceroom.love. Are you an author who's tired of the long waits and low royalties? Exact Rush is here to change the game. We specialize in publishing with precision, and we get your book to market in just 3 to 6 months, not years. But we're not just about books. We also support your photography, web design, and content creation needs. Our focus ranges from spirituality to pop culture, and we're excited about our diverse lineup of upcoming releases. So, if you're ready to keep more of your hard-earned money and get published faster, Exact Rush is your ticket. Visit exactrush.com and turn your creative dream into a profitable reality today.